The race to suppress the Indian COVID variant, which could threaten the easing of restrictions. Vaccinations are being stepped up and the army is being deployed in northwest England to help with surge testing.
We have got COVID-19 circulating within our community and we really want to stop the increase in rates. We want to stop the transmission.
Also ahead, more children are killed in the deadliest Israeli attack on Gaza since the current fighting began. While here and around the world, protests are held against Israel's continued occupation of Palestinian land. And Leicester dare to dream of overcoming Chelsea to win their first FA Cup final.
This is ITV News with Duncan Gollestani.
Good evening. It is in many ways a weekend of hope. Just hours before COVID restrictions are relaxed across much of the UK, events are underway to test our ability to return to almost complete normality. Runners in a 5K race and football fans at Wembley have been gathering under the watchful eyes of scientists studying their ability to spread the virus. But the dark cloud on the horizon is the so-called Indian variant, spreading fast with a foothold in the northwest. Fears are growing that it could derail plans to lift almost all restrictions in England in June. Dan Rivers has the latest.
FA Cup day, a busy Wembley and fans queuing in expectation. But this glimpse of normality is not all it seems. Today the crowd was less than a quarter of the stadium's capacity. Long after the pundits have assessed the football here, scientists will be analysing the footfall to see if events like this pose a risk. Go! There was a similar tentative return to running at Kempton Park as well today, a race which was also a giant experiment. One group running socially distanced, another without any such measures to see if there was a difference in transmission rates.
We're collecting data across a range of different events, at Wembley, the Crucible, the O2 and here now today. We have cameras positioned around this site and we have members of staff making observations. And so we are just collecting data, making observations, seeing how people are performing throughout the day.
The study comes as concerns grow for hotspots like Bolton, where the rise of the so-called Indian variant of the virus has sped up in recent days. Door-to-door testing has started this weekend for some 12,000 households.
We have got COVID-19 circulating within our community and we really want to stop the increase in rates. We want to stop the transmission, and what we're doing is asking people to test.
A vaccine bus has been out, again trying to boost protection here, as the government warns the new variant does appear to be more transmissible.
It is spreading, but as I say, on the basis of current evidence, there's no evidence to suggest it evades the vaccine or that it leads to greater risk of death or severe illness. But we are still working on the extent to which it is more transmissible.
At the moment, plans to allow people back inside pubs and restaurants are going ahead on Monday, but experts are carefully monitoring the spread of the virus, which may jeopardise further easing of restrictions in June. Dan Rivers, ITV News.
Our political correspondent David Wood is with us now. David, is there any more clarity tonight on whether the government is expecting to delay the lifting of those restrictions?
Duncan, Monday's easings will go ahead. The big question mark, though, in England is whether restrictions can be got rid of altogether on the 21st of June. Yes, it's still quite a way away, but the reason why there is a question mark over that is because we simply don't know enough about the so-called Indian variant. As Dan Rivers was reporting there, it is thought by scientists to be more transmissible. The question is, and it's going to take a couple of weeks to find this out, is just how much easier it is to catch. And that will really dominate how we come out of restrictions. Of course, coming out of restrictions is going to be very good news when we do for nightclubs, concert venues. And the Culture Secretary said today he understands that people in those industries are anxious, but we must accept a period of heightened vigilance with a new and fast-moving variant. So more words of caution rather than hope coming out of the government.
OK, David, thank you. At least 8 more children have died as the relentless back and forth of rocket attacks and airstrikes continues in the Middle East. The children were killed in an Israeli airstrike on a densely populated refugee camp in Gaza. Hamas retaliated with a barrage of rockets on Israel, which was followed by yet another airstrike. That destroyed a Gaza tower block housing many international news organisations. Our global security correspondent Rohit Katru's report from Tel Aviv contains distressing images from the start.
Omar Hadidi is suffering, but at 6 months old, despite his tears, he doesn't yet know how painful today really was. His mother and 4 brothers were killed in an Israeli airstrike. He's the only survivor of an attack which killed a family he'll never remember. His father consoles him, but then he learns he has lost another child. Killed because of where he lived. Then a few hours later, a high-rise building was hit. Inside it were homes and the offices of media organisations, evacuated shortly beforehand. The international news network Al Jazeera had offices there. The airstrike shown live on air.
There we are, another strike on that tower, and the tower has come down.
Israel said Hamas had been using the tower too, but this is also where the American news organisation, the Associated Press, had its base. So one question now is how the US administration will respond. What justification is there for an airstrike against a high-rise building housing journalists, news organisations telling the truth?
AP and other media organizations had their offices, but the primary focus of that, the primary purpose of that building, is for the R&D, Research and Development Department of Hamas.
Earlier in Tel Aviv, we watched as a fresh barrage of rockets from Gaza was fired into Israel. Warning sirens sounded as dozens flew in above us. Israel's air defense system was deployed, but some rockets made impact. An Israeli man was killed. We understand that mediation between both sides is progressing, but their demands of each other are changing, and that today's attacks in Gaza have the potential to alter the prospects for de-escalation. Rohit Katru, ITV News, Tel Aviv.
Well, 6 days now of stories like those led hundreds of thousands of people to join protests around the world today. It's an annual day of demonstrations against the continued occupation of Palestinian lands by Israel. But this week's events can only have added to the numbers, including tens of thousands who took to the streets of London, marching to the Israeli embassy. Chloe Keedy has more.
They came to show solidarity and send a message from the streets of London to the rest of the world. Palestine! Thousands and thousands of voices, all calling for one thing: an end to violence against the people of Palestine. Why does it matter to you?
We're fighting for the kids. I'm a mom of 4. It's not fair.
And knowing that there are so many people out there suffering like this because of injustice is just completely avoidable.
Because people are dying, people are losing their homes, and it's not right.
Today marks the 73rd anniversary of the Nakba, also known as the catastrophe, when hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were expelled from their homes.
Free Palestine!
People march on this day every year to express solidarity with Palestine, but not in these kinds of numbers. This here is the front of the march, and I've just been told there are still people joining 2 miles back down the road.
And more gathered in cities across the UK and around the world, from Newcastle to Sydney in Australia, where thousands of people marched through the streets to show their support. In Paris, police used water cannon to disperse protesters who'd come out in defiance of a ban. Back in London, demonstrators gathered outside the gates of the Israeli embassy. This was a peaceful protest, but one determined to be seen and heard. Chloe Keedy, ITV News.
In other news, British troops have seized a huge cache of weapons and equipment from terrorists in Mali. The UK task force of about 100 soldiers is supporting a UN peacekeeping mission in the North African nation. Rifles, ammunition and radios were confiscated from Islamist militants. Scottish Premiership champions Rangers have completed the season unbeaten with a 4-0 win over Aberdeen. Stephen Gerrard's side finished the season on 102 points, the first time the club has passed the 100 mark in a top-flight season. But despite pleas from the police and government to stay away due to COVID restrictions, thousands of Rangers fans gathered outside Glasgow's Ibrox Stadium. Meanwhile, 20,000 other football fans do have permission to gather together at Wembley tonight to watch the FA Cup final in person. It's the latest and the largest of the government's tests of mass gatherings. Leicester are hoping to win the trophy for the first time in their history, while Chelsea want their 9th. Chris Scudder is there.
Just like old times for football's grandest old occasion. It was great to be back with every fan going through COVID checks that meant that they could be here for football's biggest test event yet in a crowd of 21,000.
And we had to show our COVID tests that were negative, that we had to go to the test centre to do. It was all fairly straightforward, really.
For the fans, a chance to put an empty, frustrating year behind them, with 12,500 Leicester and Chelsea fans mixing with large numbers of NHS key workers.
And I'm an NHS worker, so it's great to have a day out.
After watching it on the TV in empty stadiums, to actually turn up and seeing the fans singing and people having a good time, it's what makes life worth living.
Football is for the fans has been the message of late, and here was the proof. Evidence too that the Duke of Cambridge, president of the FA, was as thrilled as anyone to have the game as we know it back. Leicester have never won the cup before, and Jamie Vardy, hero of their shock league title win, snatched at an early chance. Chelsea, 8 times winners, had the better of the first half. The German Timo Werner blasted over the bar. And the Blues should have led, but Azpilicueta was inches away from getting the crucial touch. Yeah, that was a little while ago. We're now live in the second half, about 25 minutes to play in this FA Cup final. We've had some drama moments ago when Leicester City, who have never won the FA Cup before, they've been in the final 4 times, have taken the lead with a fabulous goal from the Belgian midfielder Yuri Tielemans. They don't come much better than that. Fantastic strike from about 30 yards or so. It flew into the top corner. So Leicester City, as things stand, are leading Chelsea by 1-0. 4 times they've been runners-up. Could this be the day, finally, the team that shocked the world by winning the Football League title a few years ago win the FA Cup as well? But more than that, this has been a day for the return of the fans. The Euros are coming here. They're going to be similar sort of crowds in a few weeks' time, 20,000 or so when England play here. And this really was the day that the people's game was reclaimed by the fans.
Chris Scudder at Wembley Stadium, thank you very much. And finally, the Royal British Legion has been marking its 100th anniversary today with ceremonies across the country. Wreaths were laid at the Cenotaph in London. The Legion was founded in 1921 in the aftermath of the First World War with the aim of supporting veterans of the British Armed Forces. Its work continues today with the annual Poppy Appeal raising around £50 million a year. In a video message to mark the occasion, the Prince of Wales praised its constant support for troops.
There are few organisations which hold a place at the heart of society in the way the Royal British Legion does. Therefore, I wanted, above all, to offer my sincere and heartfelt gratitude to all those who have helped build this wonderful organisation we know today.
And that is it for now. We're back at 10:30. Until then, have a very good evening.